Yes, sir.
He wasn't at
We'll
home when
call
you
the
went?
meeting.
No.
He's gone.
CDA
when I
meeting to
left.
order. I'm sure Jerry will show up.
You're gonna be late.
You'll be late.
You forgot to set his clock ahead.
We'll
No,
see him at 7 o'clock.
that would have
Well,
worked.
that is really funny.
That would have worked on
A
Sunday.
retired schedule. That's good for him. Good for
I'll
him.
call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Wayne Clark.
Yes.
Karen Gale.
Here,
Don Niemer.
Here.
Alderman Weigel. Not present. Alderman Haas.
Here.
Jerry Monter's not present. And Mike Suter.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Thank you. And the approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any changes or adjustments? Those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Any opposed? First item is number 2, 23-0165. Who wants to take that? Patrick?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to refer that one to Sean.
Sean?
Thank you, Wayne. This is an item in regards to our EPA Brownfield Assessment Grant that the city received. It was a $500,000 grant from the EPA. We received it last year, and if you recall at the last meeting, we selected 3 consultants: Ayers, Kapoor, and Ramble Environmental. Those would be the 3 consultants that we would be using to use the grant funds to partner with. It would be the ones doing the phase 1 and phase 2 environmental investigations and things like that. The EPA has a requirement that for use of this grant, that any consultants that you use have to go through this quality assurance project plan. What it basically is they have to sort of submit their procedures for how they do lab work and how they go out and test things in the field and things like that, and get that approved by the EPA before they can actually go out and do the work for the grants through the city. So that's what this is about. Each one is around, they all came in at different amounts, but fairly close, all around $5,000 to complete this work.
Wait,
Thank you.
5,000 or 500,000? Okay.
Oh, so
Because it's-
5,000, yeah, so this is a total of 14,800 for all 3 to do the quality assurance plan. So.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we have to take some other vote? No. Any opposed? None. Motion passes. Next is resolution to approve an offer to purchase to Milwaukee County. Who is taking that lead?
That would be me.
Patrick,
Mr. Chair.
please.
6901 West Beloit Road is the former Czar's Bar. But if you go back far enough in the city's records, you'll find out besides a bar, it also was a filling station. This property was foreclosed on by Milwaukee County. There are over $95,000 in back taxes, interest, and fees on the property. It's also in deplorable condition. It's vacant. It's pretty much abandoned. Some of the front porches even caved in a little bit. A number of us toured the property last summer. And the county is finally getting around to selling it, and we submitted an offer of $40,000 to acquire the property. And if you notice, it's roughly 2 parcels. For anybody to really do this, buy this property, you would have to do a phase 1 and phase 2, just because of the record on the property there's a little note on a piece of paper that says pumps removed. And then there's another little note that says tanks removed. But if the tanks were removed prior to 1950, a lot of those discussions have been just like fill it in, or they left it, or paved over it. If they've actually dug them out, there are no records of that. So we'd have to do an investigation to make sure that the site is suitable to buy, and that we have that in the offer. So the county has countered our offer at $55,000, and that money would come from, we have funds that are each year provided to us from fire to the city of West Allis for underwriting economic development purposes. It mainly pays for staff and consultant fees, et cetera. But there's some money left over from 2001 and or 2021 and 2022. I'm aging myself here, 2001. Anyways, we would use those funds to acquire the property and then work to sell the parcels after completing a thorough environmental investigation. Idea here is that, knowing that the environmental conditions possibly could be there, anybody that would buy this from the county may not do the thorough investigation. They may look for a low-end use, just, try to satisfy something to buy the property with the county. And by us stepping in, we can help navigate this property to an ideal complementary use to the neighborhood. Gladly answer any questions.
Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I had a question, Wayne.
Sure, please, go ahead.
So what would let's say there is a tank in there, what's the plan then?
So right now, we plan, and then the next item on the agenda is actually to use the grant money we have to do a environmental assessment and cleanup. And then if there are tanks, we can either apply for a site assessment grant through the Department of Natural Resources, or apply for a cleanup grant from the EPA to help clean up the site.
So we would demolish the structure, find out what's underneath there, and then try to we would utilize grant funds to
Correct. We'd go
make
after every
this
grant we
property
can,
saleable.
bankable and developable, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I move approval.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion, the resolution passes. Thank you. Item 4, resolution to approve the scope of services by Ramble. And who's got that?
That would be me, Mr. Chairman, just the same thing again, because of the history on the property, before we would actually acquire it, we would complete our phase 1 and phase 2 on the property. Once we have that information, then we'll close with the county to acquire the property, or pass on the property.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Thank you. And any discussion?
I did want to add, remember, you approved the quality assurance plan before? So in part of the phase 2, in order to get the phase 2 done, we have to wait for the EPA to approve that.
Oh,
And then, so this is helping getting the ball rolling to get all these things going.
okay.
Thank you.
Can I have one question?
Yes, sir.
So why doesn't the county, why isn't this a sheriff's sale?
They already did. They own it. The Milwaukee County owns the site.
So they put it up for auction, nobody purchased it?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
They were gonna put a for sale sign on the property, so they just came to us. They usually give us a look at a list. Most recent person that the county has hired gives us a list of, here are the properties that we're foreclosing on, or here are the ones we acquired, might the city have interest? And this is on our nuisance property list, because each year we're shoveling the sidewalks, we're cleaning up the site, the door's been open, the roof is caved in an area, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I move approval. I think we did though already.
Yeah,
we did
and then
that.
I
We have a motion and a
seconded, yep,
second.
yep.
Keep
So,
it
My question was late, sorry.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes. Next is a resolution to approve a purchase and sales agreement with Mark Higgins. And who's got that?
That would be me, Mr. Chairman.
Patrick? Yes, sir.
I think I've outlined this situation before to the CDA. This is on the corner of 66 and Mitchell. It's a telecommunications business that's located in terms of, they put up cell phone towers and radio towers, and they go up to the top of those radio towers and change the light bulb out. If you look at WTMJ over there and you go to the top, that's what they do. And they have access to, I don't know if I have a laser pointer, but maybe I can use the mouse. There's an outstanding agreement for a parcel that went like this in this general area that allowed them access to Mitchell, and they would go out in this general area from their site. Through this purchase and sale agreement, there would be a termination of that easement. And then in exchange, the CDA, under the obligations, would put in a 30-foot driveway along Mitchell to allow them access to the western portion of their building. At the same time, that they would have the obligation to put in their new sewer lateral. Right now, their lateral also goes through Lot 4, that we commonly refer to, and across the Lot 1 driveway here, that goes back to Maker's Row. So this would resolve those matters. And the other thing is, we're selling around 2,000 square feet of land for around $16,000. So they would buy that sliver of land to expand and allow them a turn radius to get into their building. The fourth item is there's around $21,000 worth of costs related to this sliver area. This whole Lot 4 was assigned costs for grading and the stormwater, et cetera. So that is part of that whole CDA obligation, because we own that parcel yet. And that has to be paid to underwrite some of the developer's costs for that, putting that stormwater in relative to that parcel. That pretty much sums up the purchase and sale agreement. They've worked out that agreement with our city attorney, going back and forth in terms of that. They went through Plan Commission last April with plans to redo the parking lot, put a fence up along this portion of their site, and as well as look at putting in landscaping and other improvements on their building. So the agreement says that they would also follow through on doing those improvements. Gladly answer any questions you may have.
The fact that they haven't done the improvements, they're waiting, well, they're now going to do them supposedly. What makes us confident that they'll do them now, since they didn't before?
I mean, they're under well, they went through Plan Commission to do those, so they have a year to do it. Do they have to do it? There's nothing in our agreement that says they have to do those things.
Should there be?
It's not something that we can dictate to them in this method. We're working out a purchase and sale agreement to allow and resolve that termination of that easement, which is most important, and the termination of that sewer lateral. The other improvements that they went to Plan Commission, that was on their fruition to go and do it and get a plan approved. They represent that in the agreement as a condition that they will do that,
All right.
so,
So the Plan Commission is really managing that piece of it.
correct.
All right. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I have a question too.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Sorry for so many questions.
No, thank you.
So, this really, like you said, in order to get control of that parcel, we need to get rid of the easement.
So we own the parcel.
Right. But
But
we
then-
can't, we don't control it because of that easement.
That easement is, well, it's an issue right now because we have dug up their easement through the development, and they need access, and their access right now is not to the satisfaction of putting a semi-truck back to their building. So our city attorney says we gotta get that done. We gotta get that driveway put in for them to provide access. At least access, because we've terminated their easement based on the development.
And the cost that represented in the item, that does not include the cost for them to relocate their lateral, right?
No, it does not include the lateral. The cost, I had estimates around $30,000 to do the driveway apron. So that would be a CDA expense. That would be charged to the TIF.
The lateral,
The apron,
but that was represented in the
yes,
document.
yeah.
So, when you just looking at the document, it looked like they were doing pretty well in this, but it doesn't reflect the cost for them to relocate this lateral.
Correct.
So they're actually, this whole deal is costing them money over and above. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll move.
Now second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion, resolution passes. Thank you. Next item is 6, resolution authorizing and directing the executive director to enter into a contract with Ayers Associates. Who has this?
Mr. Chair, this would be Sean Miller.
Sean, please.
Thank you. This is another reference to the $500,000 EPA Brownfield Site Assessment Grant. As part of that grant application, one of the things that's important to the EPA in order for you to get that application, or to get the grant, is what they call reuse planning. So within the work plan application to get the grant, we laid out, many sites throughout the eastern corridor of the city that could be good candidates, former brownfield sites that that could use assistance with environmental assessments and things like that. And that's one of the main reasons that the city did receive the grant. As part of that, they ask that you do some what they call reuse planning, and so 150,000 of the $500,000 is budgeted towards that end. Part of that is public participation, and it's just kind of going through the sites and understanding how they can be redeveloped, and then creating sort of a game plan. You could even create marketing items, to help push for the redevelopment and things like that, things that might attract developers. You can use them to help create connections between sites, things of that nature, to help create a more sort of unified redevelopment area. Sometimes things are done hodgepodge, site by site, and you're looking to create connections and things like that. So that's all positive things that the reuse planning can be used for. I was just cycling through different potential sites that we had within the work plan application along Greenfield Avenue. This one is a Summit Place site, a few contaminated parcels that Summit Place owns that are ripe for potential redevelopment, but have some environmental hurdles that we need to talk to Summit Place about, and we can help plan out how to redevelop those properties along with others surrounding them. So we've reached out to Ayers and Associates on this. They are one of our three consultants that we can use for the grant, and they've submitted a nice scope of services. We have it set up so it's not to exceed 80,000 at this point. And they have their hourly rates in there, et cetera. So we're asking the CDA to approve us, allow us to hire Ayers to start that reuse planning process.
Thank you, Sean. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I move approval.
I'll second.
Go back to the
We
first
have a
one.
motion and a second.
Mr. Chair,
Any discussion?
I'd like to just comment on a couple things.
I'm
If you-
sorry, what?
I want to just comment on
Oh,
a
yeah,
couple things.
please.
You might recall at our last discussion, we talked about the adversity going on in the office market. And then the property owner who owns a good deal of Summit Place, which is Whitnall Summit. We had conversations with them, and they're in a couple of years will be ready to develop some of the property that Sean highlighted to the north. You saw that land. That's in the Old Alice Chalmers area that has never been developed. It's sitting to the north. It's almost 8 acres of land. And with the industrial market the way it is, maybe that's industrial. We don't know. But how do you lay and connect these things? How do you maybe reposition Summit Place and relative to the motor casting site? And how do we look at parking? And then the DOT has actually reached out to us. You see Sean's highlighting the connection road, but there's also the railroad that goes through this area. And something that the DOT is asking is this used? And it's not used very much because it impacts, do you have to put crossings here, in those particular things? And maybe it's not used anymore. Maybe this becomes a pedestrian path, connects, the Sona and all to the Hank Aaron. And now you're getting some more broader thinking through this area, broader ideas, vision, and that makes the land a little bit more marketable. You highlighted just south of that new road, there's the motorcast, or that large truck, that parcel that's owned by Whitnall Summit. That's used right now for truck training.
Oh.
That becomes a lot more valuable when that road goes through. And then how do you use that land and the connections, et cetera? These are all impacted brownfield sites, so. So we're looking at what creative vision we can have. This is not a report and go, let's just throw it on the shelf. We want to put this and use this for marketing to get people interested. Summit Place has expressed interest as well. How do we develop those parcels to the north? How do we come up with new ideas in this area, so.
This road, is this the same road that was proposed some years ago relative to the freeway design,
Yes.
and that freeway design still isn't settled, I don't think.
It seems like that discussion is moving faster in terms of, they've come back and said that they know the plan, the lanes, they've agreed on that. So the DOT's been out here surveying and then they have an informational meeting as well. And then, I think they're also now with the railroad figuring out, do we have to put the crossings? So they are analyzing, it's either gonna be early part of the road project to do this, or it'll be later in the road project. So they've represented that it could happen within the next two years.
All right.
So we wanna be ready in terms of if that road gets put in, so. And that's one of the first, I think they're asking us what to name it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up too. There-
So,
We'd have 2 Washington streets. Yeah.
yes, and that's come up. So if they're asking what to name it, so they're moving ahead with some plans. So I think we need to be ready for that too.
Lysick Avenue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carlson Way. I mean,
Yeah.
Carlson,
Oh, yeah, that would be even more appropriate, yeah. Somebody who, yeah.
So we have a motion and a second relative to the number 6
Chalmers
resolution.
Place.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes, thank you. Next is resolution amending a financial real estate consulting services contract with SB Friedman, not to exceed $25,000.
You're gonna see some information from SB Freeman here in a little bit in closed session, but we use SB Freeman to review TIF projection, or developer projections, kind of compare it to market. They do the analysis to help us position in terms of our negotiations. It's almost around, I think, once a year, we're adding $25,000 to their service contract. And we really like working with them. We think their information is very helpful and helps us in terms of negotiation, so. And it's something that the CDA has asked for, having an outside entity reviewing what we're putting in development agreements, so.
I will move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Other than the fact that we've got a good working relationship, which is critical, how do we test whether or not what we are paying Friedman or any of these other consultants is in fact reasonable?
We can reach out to another entity that does this type of services, Baker Tilly. I think there's one other firm, I can reach out and see what their hourly rates are in comparison.
I think
And report back.
I think working relationships are critical. However, I also like to test to see whether or not this makes financial sense.
Sure. Uniquely, they just completed a housing market study for the city of Wauwatosa. So, other communities around are also, using SB Freeman too.
Well, I hope you don't take my comment as suggesting to get rid of Friedman. I just
No,
want to test.
but it's always good to check.
So we have a motion and a second on number 7 on this resolution. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. And welcome, Mr. Chair. We're on number 8.
Thank you. Continue. You're doing such a fine job.
Number 8, discussion on the property located at 6771 West National Avenue. Who has this one?
Mr. Chair, it will be Sean Miller.
Sean, please.
Thank you. So if you recall, this is a CDA-owned property at 6771 West National Avenue. It's highlighted here at the corner of 68th and National. We have a letter of intent with Baum Revision, which has been extended by the CDA a number of times. It appears that they have found a tenant to utilize the building, to utilize all 41,000 square feet of the building. They'd be looking at using half of it for an event space and then the other half for office and associated warehousing. The user would be a user that does events, major events in the Milwaukee area, and would be great get for the city, a very nice use to be within using what could be a landmark building in the city, as the developer continues to work with the National Park Service on restoring the building. If you recall, One of the key funding sources for this would be historic tax credits. And as part of that, they are working with the National Park Service, and they've taken the next steps of scanning the side of the building. And they're working with Kabala Washatka, a very reputable architect, on putting together detailed plans for the National Park Service. And then alongside that, now they have a signed letter of intent with a tenant, and we can certainly talk more about the details of that in the closed session. But we're excited to see this potentially move forward. The other part of this is when you have an event space, an office, and things like that, the parking is important. And so there's a parking lot associated with this, adjacent to the building. We're generally looking at potentially leasing that space so that we can maximize the parking in a shared parking situation where the event space can use it when they need to. Ope Brewing sort of uses that space now, and so we're hoping to create a nice shared parking scenario out there, as well as, farmers market on Saturday mornings. If there's parking available there, it'd be nice to have that versatility. And the other part of that of leasing it versus selling it is that future development. We can control the future development of it. If you needed to build an associated parking structure with whatever you built up and things like that. As we develop around it, this land becomes more and more valuable. So we're excited about this, cautiously optimistic, and we can provide you more information in closed session.
On items 8 through 11, all discussions, including what Sean just covered, are these to be dealt with in closed session?
We can do item 9 in closed session, but 10 I can do in open. Just give you an update on 116. Some of the council members are aware of this, but because the CDA is,
So
probably-
sticking with 8 for just a moment, on number 8, let's see, you said that the applicant has a,
letter of intent
letter of intent.
from a
And is
prospective
A
that,
tenant, a tenant.
does that letter of intent suggest that the person they're working with or the organization they're working with is passionate about getting in here so we can move this forward?
Yeah,
Well,
yes, absolutely.
we
It's
have
a big
not
step.
met with them, but they are, they're working on negotiating out a lease now.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move to number 10, discussion on the redevelopment of 116th and Morgan.
As I say, in 2 weeks I'll have some more information, right? We've completed last May methane testing. That was summer, spring testing. And then one of the DNR requirements that it had to be tested during winter. We had to wait till it could be, actually it's cold here in March, but we had to wait in January when we actually had cold enough weather to do the testing. And the methane was still present. It's around 2 acres of the site. Overall, our consultant is representing that it looks like the site could be developed. Now, it's gonna be subject to the DNR's review, et cetera, and one of the other things that has to occur is geotesting or geotechnical. What's the quality of the soils? Now that we've done all the environmental, is there soil quality to be able to be built on? And there are some serious grade differences around the site. You may not want to build right up to the edge of that because it could drop 20, 30 feet on the west side of the site. It goes significantly down. So we're working through what level of testing. The early estimate I had on doing this testing was $5,000. The most recent one was $21,000. So I'm trying to get some more quotes right now on geotechnical and figuring out, we don't know what's gonna be built there, but we gotta be able to represent to a developer, yes, the soils are compatible for building or suitable. There's also a little wetland delineation on the site. So this is like the testing and compaction testing that they would do on the site. But we also would need to do a topography survey as well as kind of a vision. We've done some in the office kind of designs of what this area could be, but we need to lay something out to present to the DNR and say, this is what our goal is, and make sure that they're fine. The area that I mentioned that was methane, that could be maybe a dog area, a pickleball court, it could be a a gazebo. I mean, it could be parts of different things like that. It could be a parking lot for whatever gets built here. But those are things you can work around. The methane we have here is not as high as some other developments that I know in the metro area that our consultant has shared. So seeing that, that's a positive sign, but you still have to work through this because it seems like there's a lot of fill material around the property here. But in the end, we're progressing the right direction. And I think next week at Common Council, our goal is to have the money assigned to the project in order to go and do the geotechnical on the site for, most likely the site will not be single family. It could be like what's to the south, condos or of some sort. Maybe they have basements, maybe they have just slab on grade type of situations. There might be some requirements that we have to do a passive venting system, just like a radon system, in order that no methane builds up in the base, if their basements are put in, that doesn't build up inside. You wouldn't want a furnace kicking in, et cetera. So incremental steps, but we're going the right direction. If the geotechnical comes back and says the soils, you can't build on them, or you'd have to spend X amount of money to build on them, those are the things we need to figure out. And then that way we can represent to the development community that this could be a buildable site. What's your interest?
What does a topo survey consist of?
Topography, what's gonna ultimately be the grade, where is the wetland area, where's the water going? The other thing is, how do we account for what's adjacent? Now, this is where it gets interesting because the site is in Greenfield. And what's to the west of us, I think Milwaukee County owns, and they're working out something maybe with the sewage district about putting fill there. So I don't know if they're gonna go higher or equal to our site. What happens, there's different things like that would all have to be factored in the drainage. Where does all the stormwater go from this area?
Parkway,
Because along, where's the mouse guy?
the river.
And then there's one other item that has to get addressed. Through this area, there's kind of almost like a little creek that runs along our property on the north side. There's wetland in this corner, and then this is Greenfield's leaf drop off, etc. So, we're trying to figure out, there's a little wetland that kind of curves in here, and we have to work through those particular items, so.
Since you have the pointer up there, how far south does our property go?
Right around this hedge line.
And where does that?
I call it a hedge line because it's really like rubble with trees coming out of it.
Yeah.
So
And where does that next development to the south begin?
right here, you can see it, the Glen of Greenfield.
So there's quite a distance between there
Yes.
and our property.
And that's a unique interest. You see the red line here and the blue line.
Yeah,
This is if we were gonna run stormwater or sewer. We have to run sanitary, storm, and all the water to the site. And where is that going to come from is gonna be the discussion. In this case, you'd have to dig up Morgan, which I think was recently done, and then you would have to come down 100 and get permission to come in through Greenfield to access the site. So that's something that we'd have to, work intergovernmental agreement out on. Other opportunity might be to get an easement from Milwaukee County to come through here and connect this way, because most of our utilities are right here in 119th and Morgan. But then there's also grade. I mean, most of the times you want things to go downhill, and this is the higher end of the site. So just something worth exploring. These are the things that we're working through to figure out if it's a.
So we keep working through this, and
Yep.
I appreciate that we're making progress. This has been a 20-year challenge, but we're doing well. We still, in the final analysis, we have to wait for the city to determine what it's gonna do about public works.
Correct.
Correct?
Well, I think that's moving. I think the council has selected the east side of the city. They've recently submitted an offer to acquire the Teledyne site. I think it's signed at this point.
In the county,
Yeah.
that's right. There's an offer and acceptance with the county where we'll be purchasing that site from the county. That is moving forward. And then there's also some eminent domain acquisitions that we need to continue on for parts south from there. which will be, so the answer though is it's moving forward, just as Patrick said.
Good, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Should we move on to number 12, consideration relative to report on redevelopment initiatives?
I don't think we have anything to go over in that area, do you?
Members of the authority, do you have any questions, issues relative to this list or anything else? Okay, then we'll move back to, a closed session?
Yes, sir.
Want to read it or want me to read it? I'm gonna read it here.
Pardon me?
I'll read it.
Okay, sure.
For agenda items 3, 5, 8, 11, the committee may convene in closed session pertinent to provisions of section 19.85/1/E of the state statutes for the purpose of deliberating and investing public funds whenever competitive bargaining reasons require a closed session. The committee may convene in open sessions after completion of the closed session to consider the balance of its agenda. Can we have a motion to go into closed session, please?
So moved.
Second. Been moved in second. Would you take roll call, please?
Wayne Clark,
Yes.
Karen Gale,
Aye.
Gerald Mater,
He's supposed to fly back to New York tonight.
Okay, yeah, right, as would be my next question. I didn't know that he was working for Golden.
We have a couple of those.
Take care, everybody.
Yep.